Good evening, everyone, and welcome to tonight's event, A Conversation with Donna Brazile. It's such a pleasure and a privilege to welcome such a distinguished guest to our campus as we commemorate Black History Month 2021. We'd like to welcome you again, Donna. It's great to have you with us.
Thank you.
You're so welcome. I'm grateful to tonight's co-sponsors, the Multicultural Center and the Black Student Cultural Programming Board, for helping to make possible what I know will already be a terrific conversation. We are proud to commemorate Black History Month to celebrate Black excellence and achievement and to remember the rich contributions that Black Americans have made and continue to make for our culture and democracy. Black History Month is also a time to remember all the work that we yet have to do to make ours a truly inclusive and anti-racist world. As many of you know, we are living through challenging times, to say the least. Just a few weeks ago, violent insurrectionists stormed the Capitol in Washington, D.C., seeking to subvert the results of the 2020 election. While they did not succeed, the events from January 6th remind us that democracy is a precious gift that we must all defend. But despite our current challenges, including the ongoing COVID pandemic and its disproportionate impact on communities of color, we have so much to celebrate. We have elected a vice president who has shattered many glass ceilings at once. Kamala Harris is the first woman, the first Black woman, the first HBCU grad, and the first person of South Asian descent to become vice president. Vice President Harris is also the daughter of immigrants from India and Jamaica. To quote the famous words of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., the arc of the moral universe is long, but it bends toward justice. And of course, what he meant is not that justice prevails by default, but that the good works of engaged citizens will ensure that our moral universe moves ever closer to justice and equality. Here at Ohio University, we have made diversity and inclusion our top priority because we know that we are stronger as a community that cherishes difference and invites respectful debate. When our students graduate, we want them to leave our campus as engaged, compassionate, and driven leaders who make a difference in their communities. One such leader, without a doubt, is our guest tonight, who herself has broken many a glass ceiling and worked at the very heart of our democracy. Again, thank you for joining us tonight for this conversation during Black History Month. And again, a warm welcome to Donna Brazile. It is now my honor to introduce the 21st president of Ohio University, Dr. Dwayne Nellis.
Thank you, Gigi. Welcome everyone to A Conversation with Donna Brazile. We are thankful to have each of you with us for this special event, and it's a great honor to have Donna Brazile here with us today. She is a respected expert who's known internationally for her work, and I'm looking forward to this discussion. She's also an adjunct professor, and I know that we'll learn a lot today. Black History Month is an important time to learn and to grow. I'm thankful for today's event and all the activities that are being held this month to help each of us learn more about Black history. I hope you'll visit our Black History Month website and get involved in the different activities. This is a crucial time for our country, and it's a time when we need to listen to each other and learn from one another. Events like today are critically important, and I'd like to thank the organizers of today's program. I'm also grateful to everyone who's involved in planning the Black History Month activities at Ohio University, especially the Division of Diversity and Inclusion, the Multicultural Center, and the Black Student Cultural Programming Board. And thank you once again to Donna Brazile for being here with us today and sharing your insights and wisdom. It's my pleasure to now introduce Dr. Chinoon.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you all for being here. And we are excited for what is definitely shaping up to be an engaging evening. So when we decided, when we were looking at speakers for Black History Month, the theme this year for Black History Month is the Black family. And we are also coming off contentious election, and who better to capture the essence of the year that we've had than Donna Brazile, with her history in politics, as well as understanding the Black family and the Black vote. We have several questions that were sent in when participants registered. We will begin with our moderator for about half an hour. Then we will take those questions that were submitted, and if time permits, we ask that you submit questions in the chat, and we will try to get to as many of those questions as possible. With that, I am pleased to introduce our moderator for this evening, and also my former professor of qualitative research, Dr. Ada Ward Randolph, who's a professor of Educational Research and Evaluation at The Ohio University in the Patton College of Education, where she specializes in qualitative methodology, cultural studies, and the history of education. She received her PhD from The Ohio State University in Educational Policy and Leadership, with specializations in African American and women's education history, urban education policy, race, class, gender studies, curriculum, and qualitative methodology. Our primary research has focused on African American teachers and principals in urban communities in the 19th and 20th century urban North and South. Dr. Randolph has published in many journals, including Qualitative Inquiry, the Journal of African American History, Urban Education, Educational Studies, Journal of School of Leadership and History of Education Quarterly. Since 1986, Dr. Randolph has conducted anti-racist workshops as a member of Women Against Racism at the University of Iowa. Dr. Randolph is a member of many professional organizations and has served in many leadership roles, including the presidency of the History of Education Society. With that, it is indeed my pleasure to welcome Donna Brazile, as well as turn it over to Dr. Randolph.
Thank you, Winsome, Dr. Chanu. I'm very proud of you. Just wanted to say that this is a public forum and I never get to do that. So proud of you, girl. And good evening, everyone, and welcome to this conversation with Donna Brazile. And I'm going to try to make it a conversation as much as I can, but I'm a historian. And so I'm going to be linking what I believe has been her contribution to the other Black women have preceded her and whose foots I think she's not only built on, but just ran over. And so I'm going to first read your bio that they've given me to read, and then we're going to jump into some questions. So thank you again for coming. Donna Brazile is the adjunct professor, author, syndicated columnist, television political commentator, vice chair of voter registration and participation at the Democratic National Committee, DNC, and former interim national chair of the DNC, as well as the former chair of the DNC's Voting Rights Institute. Currently, Donna is a contributor to Fox News and was formerly a contributor to ABC News and CNN. She was the recipient of a Daytime Emmy Award for Outstanding Daytime Program, Good Morning America, 2016 to 2017, in conjunction with her work with ABC. Ms. Brazile has been a syndicated paper columnist for Universal UClick and a prolific writer with articles appearing in nearly every major newspaper in the nation. She is founder and managing director of Brazile and Associates LLC, a general consulting grassroots advocacy and training firm bound in Washington, D.C. Again, first, I would just like to thank you for coming to share your insights with us about the African-American experience and African-American women in particular. Let me see here, America's Women during Ohio University's Black History Month.
Thank you.
And since I am a historian, I'm going to actually start in the past.
Okay.
Because again, in the early 19th century, Maria Stewart was the first woman and the first Black woman, African-American, to publicly speak in Boston in 1832 about political mobilization of people of African descent. Your work is a part of our historical continuum of Black women political activism. Why did you become involved in political activism?
Well, first of all, let me just say what a great honor it is to see all of you virtually. I wish we could be there in person. I know we would not only talk about the weather, because it seems that the only time we can have a conversation without arguing these days is when we talk about the weather, but or sports. And I love sports, but I also love history. And I got involved in politics at the age of 9, following the assassination of Martin Luther King on April 4th, 1968. My grandmother called us in her room that evening when we got home from school, and she told us what had happened. And while she did not explain all of the nuances about his assassination, she made it clear to us that we had to pray for Dr. King, his family, and she encouraged us to pray for those responsible. When my grandmother told us to pray for Dr. King and his family and those involved in the movement, I was, yes, you know, dear Father, dear God, thank you so much for his leadership, blah, blah, blah. But when my grandmother said, pray for those, the people responsible, I said, wait. Now I was all of 8 years old, but I knew enough to, to raise, why did we have to pray? Why do we have to pray for those responsible? And my grandmother said, because we're Christians. We love the Lord, and Dr. King loved the Lord, and Dr. King made love the centerpiece of his mobilization. And as she went on to explain that, something caught my imagination. And I think that something was the fact that Dr. King stood for something. He stood for love. He stood for justice and equality for all. And so the next year in my little beloved hometown right outside of New Orleans, we had an election for a city council race. I got involved because the grown-ups were getting involved, and my job was a simple job. My job was to go door to door and basically say, we need your parents to register and vote. So I went next door to Pam's house. She was my best friend. I said, Pam, it's Miss Bobby and Miss Rita. They're registered to vote. And then I went across the street to Baby Jack. Everybody had a Baby Jack in their lives. And I said to Baby Jack, I said, is Miss Hermione and Mr. Jack registered? Then I went to Miss Lois Jean. And by the end of that day, I knew every registered voter and non-registered voter on the block. As you can imagine, it's now 50 years plus later, and I'm still involved in voter registration campaign, because in our democracy, voting is the lifeblood of how we participate, how we make our voices known, make our advocacy known. And so I have been involved since I was 9 because I wanted to change the world. And the best way to change the world is to get people active, to ensure that they're engaged, and to get them on the front lines of creating a change that we wish to see in the world. So that's how I got involved, and that's why I'm still involved in American politics.
That also links back to Mariah Stewart, because she felt that God told her to do, because it was not natural or normal at a time for Black women or African Americans to speak publicly, but she's felt God told her to do this. So it kind of links into your story as well, in terms of religion or our spirituality being a foundation for our activism.
Well, today is Ash Wednesday, so I had to go to Mass virtually. Yes. As I've gone to Mass over the last year virtually. But the Bible for me, and I know the Bible has been used throughout history to subjugate and oppress people, but the Bible for me is a really remarkable document. When I was yesterday, I was at the funeral service of Cicely Tyson up in New York, and as Reverend Butts started to walk down to get the service underway, he was reciting the 27th Psalm. The Lord is my light and salvation. Whom shall I fear? The Lord is the strength of my life. Whom shall I be afraid? When my enemies come before me, they shall stumble and fall. That my Aunt Ethel, who died at the age of 97, that was her song. I mean, that was her way of saying, you have to stand up for yourself. You have to fight, and God will take care of the rest. I mean, any good reading of the Bible, you know, you come away with knowing that God is an active God. God is not a passive God. God is an active God for us to act. And that's why I seek freedom and justice for all. The Bible is a liberation document, in my judgment. And let me just say one other thing. So if I'm gonna be a little controversial for some of you men, but I'm gonna say it because y'all got to hear this. I mean,
Okay.
here it was. Jesus hung out with women just like men. But when he was crucified and died on Calvary, where were the men? They had gone off to the upper room. They were not even there. The women were there. Yet when you read Mark and Luke and Matthews and John, they're not written by Mary. Mary should have written the book because Mary was there. Mary never left. Mary was not afraid. And then go to Esther. When she went to confront the king to save her people for such a time as this. And here the Bible was used to say that women were weak. I don't see any. I read the Bible. In fact, I got a book for Christmas called Bad Girls of the Bible. Yes, indeed. I like them. Oh yeah, because women have always stirred things up. If we don't stir things up, we can't make things happen. So there's no such thing. God can put no weak people on this planet. God put us all here to be resilient and strong and courageous and to do what it is we believe is right for everybody. And the centerpiece is love. That's why Dr. King motivated so many. That's why the women of the civil rights community and the women, you know, I got to tell you, I was reading something the other day, Polly Murray. She was the woman behind the Brown versus Board of Education. She wrote the brief. We often hear about what the men are doing. We never talk about what the women have been doing. I mean, we don't talk about Ella Baker. She was the strategist behind all of the demonstrations. She was the trainer behind many of those who participated in the nonviolent campaign for civil rights and equal justice under the law. So it's time that we learn our history so that we know that everybody has a place at the table, everybody. And by the way, we've never asked anyone to leave the room. We've always say scoot over and make room for others.
Well, for all we know, Mary did read a book, write a book. We just haven't found it yet.
Oh, it's out there. And
yeah, so we just haven't found it yet.
Look, that's why I've been to the Vatican 7 times. I know by the time I get there on the 8th and the 9th trip, the book is there. That's why the last Pope, the previous Pope, John Paul, wanted to highlight Mary and make her a saint. You know, the reason why I'm still in the Catholic Church, we say, you Catholic? I said, born and raised, 4th, 5th, 6th generation of Catholics. And I'm gonna be a Catholic until I die. And when I finish my work, you know, when I get to the pearly gates and see all them sisters, because you know, Aretha's up there. Aretha's there, Cicely's there, Mary Wilson is there, all of them up there, okay? And of course, they got a prince too. Y'all know they got in the Godfather of Soul. When I get there, I'm gonna have a conversation. We gotta get this together. We gotta really make this happen. This is the 21st century and we're still fighting over issues that we were dealing with back in the day that you were talking about. I'm tired. It's time to finish the fight for justice and equality for all. Finish the fight. Last year, my theme was accelerate the pace of change. This year is finish the fight. Finish the fight.
Finish the fight. Finish the fight.
Finish it.
Okay, so I'm gonna bring us into the 20th century to some degree with the words of Anna Julia Cooper. Because she in 1892, in a voice from the South said, only the Black woman can say when and where I enter in the quiet, undisputed dignity of my womanhood without violence and without suing or special patronage. Then and only then the whole Negro race enters with me. There is a call for workers and demand an intelligent and sympathetic comprehension of the interests and special needs of the Negro race. So Anna Julia Cooper was one of those women who sought to change our access to political, social, and economic advancement. So how do you see that your role as a Black woman in particular has shaped your political activism?
Well, because early on in life, I had remarkable role models. not only my mother, her mother, my father's mother. I mean, first of all, they all worked. So this notion that women could not do anything other than being homemakers and mothers, no. I was raised by strong and resilient women, women who raised their families, often raised another family, and got down to the business. I was fearful of my mother. Seriously, she scared me. I don't know what, if she would say, shut up, I was like, okay. And she would say, put that down, okay. Because I knew based on her history, I knew she was resilient. Now, my dad was a military hero. He got 4 Bronze Stars in Korea. I mean, he was a tough man, okay? He was on a 37 parallel, and he was tough, but it was my mother's and my mother and my grandmothers who influenced me. And, you know, every day I would wake up thinking, how could I be more like them? Their courage, their dignity, their valor, their eloquence, their gracefulness. You know, I wanted to emulate them. And as I got older, I didn't mind carrying Mrs. King's purse if she wanted me to, because she hired me to make Dr. King's birthday holiday. She said, will you work on this campaign? I'm like, what else I have to do? I'm going to graduate from college. And I had a job, but you know, I told my mom, I'm gonna get to the job as soon as I get this done. Well, as you know, that was the big lie. Forgive me, but that was a big lie. She knew I wasn't going to work for no 9 to 5 to make money. I was going to change something. But Mrs. King introduced me to all the women of the civil rights movement. And by getting to know them and working with them, and then finally I got to meet Shirley Chisholm and Barbara Jordan. Of course, I met Bella Abzug. I met Gloria Steinem. I'm still in touch with Gloria Steinem. I met them all. I met Betty Friedan. I met women who shaped history. And yet when Rosa Parks died in October 2005, I called Condoleezza Rice because she was Secretary of State. And I knew Condi, okay? We're Southern girls. Southern girls keep in touch. I keep in touch with everybody, but my Southern girls. And I said, you know one thing, Condi? I know, you know, she's from Alabama. I said, Condi, we need help. I said, I'm working on, and can you work on? And she said, yes. So Condoleezza Rice was able to get the airplane to airlift her from the various services from Alabama, all the way from Montgomery, all the way to Washington, and then from Washington to Detroit, her final burial place. Condoleezza was able, Secretary Rice, she was able to get the president to come and lay a wreath and to be a part of it. We, of course, work with not only Nancy Pelosi and others on Capitol Hill to make sure that she can lie in the rotunda. And so it's important that you work in coalition to know that history, to know how you can make a difference. But for me, it started with growing up in a household. I'm the third of 9 children. And although my mom was listed as a quote unquote, a maid, my mother was more than a maid. My father was more than a janitor. Yes. They were giants. They made a way out of no way to put 8 out of the 9 children through school. How do you do that as a maid? My mother used to send me $5 or sometimes $10 wrapped into a plain piece of paper. And my college roommates would say, what is she saying? Because it was plain. I said, and then I would pretend that I was reading from my mother. Dear Donna, this is your mom. How long will it take for you to finish? Wrap it up. I told them that I got into college in August of 1977. By August of 1981, because I was scared of my mother. I got out in 4 years. Ooh, I was scared of her. She was the toughest woman. I mean, one night there were a bunch of snakes outside of our house. You know, I grew up near the bayou, and I was scared of snakes growing up. My mother went outside, and it was a big old snake and a water moccasin. They were poison. My mama picked up the shell and went, zoop. I said, ooh, ooh, ooh. And that, that cemented her role as the bravest, the toughest, the most glorious woman. And yet when she wore her pearls and when she looked her part, she was that woman of the house. But she was my mama, and I loved her.
Great, great. You said earlier that you really started into political activism as a child with the death of King. But as an adult, how do you then enter into politicalization?
Well, following the successful campaign to make Martin Luther King's birthday a national holiday, I
Okay.
got involved in Reverend Jesse Jackson campaign. Why? Because Reverend Jackson was interested in organizing and helping to register people to vote. And because of my own background as a child doing voter registration campaigns, I felt it was natural for me to go and work for Reverend Jackson. I must also tell you, most people don't know this, but Reverend Jackson was a candidate for the president not only in 1984 and 1988. He registered millions of new voters for the first time, many of them young voters. He empowered an entire new generation of people to get involved in politics. When you look at the number of Black elected officials and the year between 1984 and 1988, and then 1994 and 1998 to where we are now, and everyone say, oh yeah, but there would never have been a Barack Obama. There would never have been
without Jesse Jackson.
The first Black governor elected, Doug Wilder. There would not have been just recently a Black man elected from Georgia had it not been for Reverend Jackson. He laid the foundation of political activism and voter registration and civic engagement that we're still enjoying the fruits of Reverend Jackson's labor today.
Yes, I concur. I think
to the cake. You know how you ever seen a 7-layer cake?
yes.
Yeah, I can make those, by the way. I can make one. And I can make a red velvet 7-layer cake. Okay.
That could be dangerous during COVID. Can't go eat that whole cake.
Everything is dangerous during COVID. That's why I'm sticking to my Cheerios, okay? But when you look at the layers upon layers upon layers, what you see is the deliberate attempt by people to change the circumstances of their lives through voter registration, and then of course through the ongoing organizing, and of course election. One last thing, I gotta say this. Reverend Jackson in '84 proposed that we put a woman on the ticket. It was Reverend Jackson who said the Rainbow Coalition should involve not just Black folks, but people of all stripes and ethnicities. It was Reverend Jackson who hired openly gay campaign officials, who took resources and donations. I remember back in the 90s when there were some Democrats who would not take resources from the gay and lesbian community. I remember, I can tell you this history because I lived it and I was a part of it, and I'm proud of that work because guess what? It teaches all of us that one person can make a difference. And in my life, I've seen multiple people make a difference and helping to build this 7-layer cake.
Yes.
That's a metaphor, by the way. It's a metaphor. The cake is a metaphor.
Okay.
So no, I can't eat.
But now I want this. I want the 7-layer velvet cake now.
Please.
You're going to put that in the mail for me.
You should hear my electoral gumbo recipe. I got a jambalaya and I got a lanyard called a little something extra. I got all of that. You just keep talking and I'll keep giving some more recipes.
Okay, sounds good. I have mentioned the 19th century African-American women and political activists that have been many contemporary African-American women, in particular, the recent passing of Cicely Tyson, who viewed her life as an actor, also as an activist. So how do Black women today connect to their responsibility to engage in the political process, regardless of their occupation?
Cicely was a dear friend of mine. And the reason why I knew I had to go and pay my respects to Cicely. This is a woman who, before it was even PC, politically correct, wore her afro. And she made a decision. She had cornrows. I know y'all look at these braids today and say, oh, no, she did it. And she did not accept any roles if it meant she had to play a prostitute or some other degrading roles. And so some people say that, Cicely, you could have made more money as a result of your work. But she said, it's not money that matters to me. What matters to me is that I must represent my people. I must represent women. And that's who Cicely Tyson was. She was a graceful woman. You know, I used to laugh and tell Miss Tyson, I said, you know, I want to be an actress like you. And she said, stick to politics. But she was fun to be involved. We were her DC family. You know, she had her New York family. She had, of course, people out in Hollywood who admired her. We were part of her DC family. And we told all Miss Tyson's stories yesterday. And I was honored to be a part of her service and to take her home to her final resting place. What a remarkable woman. She was a giant. She was beautiful. She was graceful. She reminded women that there's so much more of us. It's like we're onions. You keep, you keep peeling, and you keep peeling. But, Eleanor Roosevelt said that we're like tea bags. You put us in some hot water, and the longer we're in the water, the stronger we get. The longer Cicely lived, the more contributions she made, not just for civil rights, but for women's rights and for equal rights. So I'm going to miss Miss Tyson. And please, if you get a chance, get her book, Just As I Am. The book is remarkable. Her final words to us was, the best that I am, the best that I gave you the best of who I am. Yes. And yesterday, sitting in a historic, I was sitting in church in Harlem. Cicely bought a pew, not bought a pew, in the black church, you have a pew named after, and there's a pew named in honor of her mother, because her mother taught her about the church, and she would go to that church for the music. So, I'm Catholic, and we don't do it like the Baptists. And nobody, the Catholics, we start low, we go slow, we rise high, strike fire, then sit down. The Baptists just get up there. We got in church, and I rocked and rolled so much yesterday. When I got home, I was still wanting to play more gospel music. I'm like, whew, I didn't know my jaw was empty until I got in that church yesterday. And she filled that space with her wit and her beauty. And I kept looking at her sitting over there in the casket. And I said, girl, get up, get on up. I just thought she was playing a role. Get up, girl. I'm gonna miss her. I'm just gonna miss her. I'm gonna miss her humor, I'm gonna miss her love, but most of all, I'm gonna miss all of her great advice. And Cicely had advice for all of us to be women of grace and women of valor. And to be women who, when I first started doing Sunday television shows, and Cicely would say, I don't want to see you raising your hands. I was, okay. And wear your best jewelry. And she really wanted us to model dignity. I have to say one last thing. Hillary and Bill were there yesterday, the Clintons. And Bill Clinton said it was fitting to have a president say goodbye. And it meant so much to have the Clintons there. And we told this story. So the night that Hillary was nominated, back in July of 2016, Cicely was there. And one of the pictures in this book, Cicely wanted to be on the podium. So as Hillary was finishing up her speech, Madam Secretary, here comes Cicely Tyson. And we were like, look at Miss Jane Pittman. Look at her. She was running to the stage with her Hillary sign like this, Miss Jane Pittman, all of 92 years old. And she rushed to that stage to honor her friend. And when Bill Clinton moved this office over 20 years ago to Harlem, it was Cicely who was the mistress of ceremony. So, there was a lot of history yesterday, but there's so much history that we've all made and we're continuing to make. Oh yeah, and we will. I mean, that's just it. I mean, I love this insights and experiences that you've had. Very few of us have had those opportunities, depending on so many other factors. But where do you think we go from here? Given this current climate, and again, Black women had to deal with their intersectionality. We couldn't just have one cause. We've got like 50 causes. So where do we go from here in furthering towards a more perfect union, or tinkering towards a more perfect union? I believe that women are the backbone of our democracy, especially Black women. 90% of Black women gave their vote to support and preserve our democracy. Democracy was on the ballot in 2020, not just Joe and Kamala, but democracy itself. And so I would hope that we would use this power, this moment, this crossroad to rebuild and strengthen the rails of democracy so that every American understand the basics of our constitutional form of government. You know, Ben Franklin, when he left in 1787, when he left, a woman said, well, what did you do? And he looked at her and he said, we just approved the Constitution. Well, what is it? He said, it's a republic if you can keep it. I think we need to update it and say, it's a democracy if we can keep it. If we want to fight for it, if we want it restored. You know, I've always seen politics as a way for us to participate into the governing of our lives. It's not about just holding political power, but it's about empowering others to know their value and their worth.
Yes, because we're in this climate of zero-sum gain. If you gain, if Black people gain, Asian people, Latino people of color gain, then it takes something away from white male supremacy. But that's, if we gain, everybody gains. And I don't think people see that it's not an either or, it's an and both concept that people have to and gather in their mindset, I think.
When I see myself as a daughter of a maid and a janitor, I see myself as a child who grew up in a country that would offer me opportunities, but I knew I had to work hard. I had to study. I had to play by the rules, listen to my parents, respect them, et cetera, et cetera. And my mother used to say, you know what? If you disobey the law, you're going to jail. Disobey God, you're going to hell. But if you disobey me, and that's when she said that, it would scare the hell out of me. I'm like, oh, don't worry. Don't worry. We're not going to disobey you. Okay. All my mother had to say one night was that I'm leaving y'all if y'all don't be quiet. We were like, okay, shut up. She was the life of our family. And I keep going back to my mother because I draw upon those lessons. You know, there are too many of our fellow citizens who live on the outskirts of hope. And they don't know how to find their path to the circle of opportunity. They often think that there's someone else who don't look like them or don't come from where they come from, who might be in line before them. And they got there simply because of the way they look. And I try to tell everybody, ain't nobody ever put me ahead. I never got ahead of anything. I had to work. I had to work. And if you don't believe this, I may just say that sometimes you have to work, what they say, twice as hard. I had to work 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 12 times as hard. Okay. And I kept working because we got to dispel this notion that when Black people make it, white people fail. Or when white, you know, we got to get out of this box. We've been in this box for over 200 years in the legal sense, in terms of the Constitution, for 400 years. And there's no one, you're not greater than me and I'm not greater than you. I'm not better than you. We're the same. I have universal blood, universal blood. I'm a universal blood donor. I give marrow, it hurts. I give marrow, I give blood, I give you anything. I'll give you whatever you need. My blood is gold. Of course, I keep it seasoned. What was Jesus' first miracle? Look.
Turning wine into water.
He turned water into wine. He listened to his mother.
Yes.
And he got the party started. Okay, he was at a wedding. He got the party started. See, I tell people, Jesus, I don't know why y'all can't have fun with Jesus, because Jesus, he got the party started. Okay, but I'm a universal donor. I mean, Black people, white people, Asian people, doesn't matter. My blood is universal. And if I was to need a blood transfusion, I would need somebody with my blood type.
Yes.
And so why don't we recognize that we have the same blood? Yeah, my hair's gray. So what? It was Black once. And by the way, if I wanted to turn purple, I could do that tomorrow. I could actually wear blue hair, green hair, pink. That might be my next color. But the point I'm making is that we have to learn how to accept differences. There's not
Yeah.
wrong with differences. Differences in viewpoint, differences in the way you look, the way you dress, the way you wear your hair. It doesn't matter. What God assembled in this great symphony is a great orchestra. We all have different instruments that we must play, but the tune
We all
has to
have
be
different roles.
one of harmony and unity. And if we can't achieve
Mhm.
that, then we're gonna keep having these what I call small D fights, okay?
Mhm.
And it's not helping our country. We're suffering because of these divisions. These divisions are artificial. They're not
Yes.
permanent. There's no reason why I can, if I came back tomorrow as a Republican, I would do the same thing I did when I came into this world and decided to be a Democrat. I didn't get into the room
Yeah.
in the Democratic Party and say, oh, this is lovely. I got in there and I tried to rearrange the furniture because I wanted more seats at the table. I tried to put up new
Yes.
portraits because I didn't want to just see the same old, same old, same old, same old. And the most
Yes.
important thing I did when I got in the room, in addition to bringing in folding chairs and some extra tables, I kept the door open. That's what needs to happen in American politics. We need more people in the room, more people at the table, more portraits around the room, so that we just don't see ourselves. If I used to tell Dick Gephardt, I've worked for a lot of men. I work for a lot of women too, but I work for a hell of a lot of men. I used to tell Dick Gephardt, I said, if you ever walk in a room and everybody in the room look like you, I said, I want you to jump up, not stand up, jump up, scream, and walk out. There's no place. I mean, by discriminating against people, we basically we take people away from the larger talent pool. When I was a campaign manager for Al Gore, you know what? I wanted the best deputy. So she was a Hispanic. I wanted another good deputy. He was a white male. I wanted a great finance director, Black woman. I wanted a great communications director, openly gay man. I didn't care. I wanted the best. I assemble a team. I mean, when the coaches start assembling teams today,
Yes.
I love football. I love basketball. I love anything. If you got a ball, hit it, kick it, throw it, whatever you want to do. I love sports. But they look for the best quarterback. They look for the best running back. They look for the best, tight end. It's about the best. And it's time that we start focusing on how do we bring in everyone? Because somewhere tonight in Appalachia, just like somewhere back in the day down on the bayou, there's a child who is reading books or reading the Bible or studying, hoping that he or she one day can just have a breakthrough moment, a moment where they can show their grace and their valor. And often we don't look at people, we drive right past them because we don't want to make God forbid if we got to stop and look at somebody.
Right.
But it's time that we stop and look at people. And one reason why I decided to go on Fox News, I had to make a decision. People forget I left CNN in July, contrary to what President Trump told you, number 45. I left CNN to become chair of the Democratic Party. Why? Because my party needed someone at a very crucial time. We were in an emergency. It was the second time in my life. And by the way, it was never on my bucket list. And I went over, I left everything. I gave up everything. When I say I gave up everything, I gave up my income. I was not even paid to be chair. I was not paid to get beaten. That's a definition of a bad girl. But that's another conversation. I did it because of our democracy. I did it because of the people who came before. I did it because I believe in justice and equality for all people. I did it because I believe the Democratic Party at that time and at this point in my life is the best party. I didn't do it for any other reasons. I did it, but I left CNN. And when I decided I was going to get back into the game, I said, you know what? I'm going on Fox. People looked at me like I was crazy. People looked at me like I had lost it. I said, no. By the way, I'm the silver fox, okay? but I
Yeah.
wanted to be part of the conversation. I'm not there to change people's minds. I'm there to listen.
Mm.
I just said,
You're a good one because
I'm there to
I've
listen.
tried watching Fox. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I hear you.
Oh, okay. Okay. I'm going to ask one more of my own questions, and then I'm going to go and start doing the participants' questions. But
Okay.
it's not lost on me that we're at the university, Ohio University. And of course, I've had a long history here. I've been over 20 years. But what advice can you pass on to young African American women within this context of the PWI, where they're not valued, they're not promoted to see their excellence? What advice or lessons can you, from your own experience, pass on to them?
You know, when I was a little girl, and then when I became a teenager and an adult, I focused on 2 or 3 things. One, I knew my talents. I mean, I had some really interesting talents, okay? I was a good writer. I could describe how a pecan came out of the nut itself came out of its shell. I could describe how it came through this entire long process before we could actually grab it, you know, crack it, and then make pralines. I love, you know, those old Southern romantic novels. You couldn't even get to the kiss because you were too busy like dealing with all of this backstory. And so develop your skills, hone in on your skills. That's number 1. Number 2, know who you are. Don't let other people define you. Know who you are. And number 3, have faith in yourself. Have faith in your abilities. You know, I often tell my friends that my body got me into college. I scaled when I told them, so my body got me into college. My brains got me out, but my body got me in. Because you know what? I knew my parents could not afford the tuition. And I knew that the Pell Grants will only cover but so much. And I had a little partial scholarship, but I knew, let me tell you, like I said, I can bat it, I can throw it, I can throw it. I played ball, okay? I threw the shot put. I had to get into school. I knew I needed an education. And LSU gave me the best deal. So I went to LSU. They said, why you go to black school? I said, they didn't give me a good deal. LSU did. No. But know who you are. Know your value. Know your worth. Listen and learn from others. I read about Harriet Tubman when I was a kid. I read about Sojourner Truth when I was a kid. Yes, I read about Alice Paul and Lucretia Mott and Susan B. Anthony, Frederick Douglass. I read about everybody. In fact, I thought I had a love affair with Abraham Lincoln. I really did. I did. Until one night it was the Easter Bunny, and I said, oh my God, is that Abraham Lincoln or the Easter Bunny? I said, I had a wild dream one night, and I said, okay, stop having love affairs. But I loved all of I used to like to read all about the presidents, their speech, their campaign. I knew what I loved. And if there's something that you love, if you're passionate about, like I'm a passionate gardener, I'm a good cook, develop and hone your skills. I wish I could paint. I'm trying. You should see all of the chalk paint I have in my other room. I'm trying to make furniture now, you know, funky looking furniture. And I'm trying to develop other skills as I get older because I want to continue to learn. I want to learn. And you should see all the new books I buy every week. And I sit here, what else am I going to do on a cold day? You think I'm going out there and, I'm a Southern girl. The only thing you can do with ice is get some tea and drink iced tea. Nope. So I want young people to know that you can be as successful as you desire, but you have to make sure you take care of yourself, that you believe in yourself, and erase all those self-doubts. No, I was not the prettiest girl in class, and I don't even think I was the fastest girl, but I knew I was one of the smartest ones, okay? Ask Nathaniel Bailey. Ask Stephen Ashton. Ask all them boys. If they 2 + 2 = 4, they kept raising their hand. I'm like, okay, I know what 12 × 12 equals. So I just waited because I knew they were good with addition. I was good with addition too, but I didn't want to do that game. I was good with subtraction. I didn't want to do that game. I want to do multiplication. And I waited my turn, waited my turn. And Miss LeBlanc would call on me and call on me. And then by 5th grade, I knew every state capital. In fact, I became Miss Buckeye in 5th grade. Yeah, I represented Ohio because I knew all your state history. Yes, because that's important. And by the time I became an adult, I was one sassy woman. I knew my stuff. I could get it. Look, I would go to Free Speech Alley with David Duke and the Ku Klux Klan right out there, and Young Americans for Freedom. And I would sit up there and say, "We must free South Africa. Apartheid is wrong." Oh yeah, on a Friday afternoon, Donna Brazile would go out there and just ruffle feathers, or as I would say, stir the pots. And then after, some of them guys would say, "Would you like a beer?" I went to every LSU football game. I don't remember one. Okay. Took that one. Definitely. I had fun. Nobody was going to take my joy. And it didn't matter how many racial slurs you called me, how many times you used some of the sexist language. I didn't care, because what you thought about me is what you thought about yourself. That's not what I thought about me. My mama said early on in life, it's not what they call you, it's what you answer to. And so you didn't have to call me the N-word. When you said that, I just kept walking, like, must be talking to himself.
Yeah.
I kept my joy.
You know, and that's the thing is that, you know, I think we're around the same age group, I think, but.
I'm 61, sugar.
61?
I'm finally the age of the decade that I fell in love with. Baby, baby, where did our love go? And you know, even when I'm on the dance floor and everybody be throwing their hands back, I say, "Oh, is that the new jerk?" And when they do this, I say, "Oh, that's the new twist." Yes, honey, I can throw my hand up. And like all day yesterday, I was going around, bum 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 bum. See, I make my own music.
Yes.
I listen to things that are positive. I believe that change is possible, but change comes from within before you can go out there and change the world. Change yourself. Change yourself.
Okay, that's powerful, because let me see one of these questions here. And this is a very interesting question, because often people think about what their responsibility. I always think racism is only Black folks' responsibility. So this question asks, what can individual white citizens do to begin to undo all the wrongs perpetuated against minorities?
First of all, so 1 year for Lent, I told you I was Catholic. 1 year for Lent, I gave up white people. I did. I gave up white people for Lent. I did. I just said, God, I got to give them up, because they're not treating themselves right, and they're upset with themselves, and therefore they're upset with me. So I gave up white people for Lent. It really was the best decision I ever made. You know why? Because I was tired of white people not knowing who they are. So I decided that year I gave up white people. I was 23. Somebody gave me a ticket to Germany, and I got a URail pass. It was only $200-something back then. I don't know what it is now. I traveled until I had nothing but pennies left in my pocket. And I traveled all through Europe. I said, I got to figure out who white people are, because they don't know who they are. They are mad at me because they don't know who I am, but they don't know who they are. And when you start learning the history of Europe, of course, the history of Africa, and you start learning about cultural influences of all of this. I mean, we're one big melting pot, but often we don't know each other. By the way, I'm Irish. I'm Black Irish.
Okay.
That's where that Catholicism come from. I'm an Irish Catholic girl, okay? And when I tell other people, they're like, I went to Grace King High School, Shamrocks to all. But nobody sees that. They see this Black skin and they're like, you see Black. I'm also Irish. And every American has two sets of roots.
Yes.
unless you're Native American.
Right.
And we don't recognize who we are. We don't know each other. And so all of this discrimination is based on myths and fabricated information. And it has caused us to miss out on so much because we're so busy hanging on to old crap. And the sooner we get out of these boxes that we've been placed in by a society that often feared differences, the better off we will be. You know, when I used to sit with my colleagues at CNN, especially Eric Erickson, I got to tell you, this is a quick story, because it involves the great state of Iowa, where you spend some time. And you know, every time you go to Iowa, New Hampshire, you double the Black population. And so, I had the 9 o'clock shift at CNN one night, and Eric Erickson had the 11 o'clock. And my job at CNN, you can ask any of those Republicans. I used to be the greeter, like, how you doing? Come on in, it's okay. You know, I'm the liberal that won't, come on, conservative, sit right here, sit by me, because I like conservative. I grew up with all y'all. I know who y'all are, so come on. One night, you know, the bars close at 11. Any children listening, I'm just telling you what I know. And that meant that I had to order the food and the drinks, and Eric wasn't getting off till 11. And I kept saying to myself, now, Donna, this is weird. When is the last time you bought food and drinks for a man, let alone a conservative white man? What's going on with you? What's going on? This is 2012. Guess what was going on with me? I didn't see Eric's color. I saw something else in Eric, and I couldn't put my finger on it. And so Henry Louis Gates, a few years later, did this whole examination of my roots, going all the way back, all the way back. He unwound the tape. He took those layers away from me. Come to find out, Eric's family come from the Greenwood plantation, and my family come from the Butler plantation in East Feliciana Parish, Louisiana.
Wow.
We were just, you know what I mean? Eric Erickson and I still talk to this day. He is as conservative as conservative. And we had this connection, but I couldn't figure it out because he didn't belong to my party. There was nothing about him. There was this thing. And I realized that we all have things for people that are different than us. We just are afraid to express it. We're afraid to let it be known. Do you think when I sit up here and watch football, I'm only rooting for the Black guys? Although, you know, I got some issues with a lot of people, but you know, yeah, you know, I like the tight ends versus the running backs. I mean, I got my issues, okay? My issues are like, I want to watch the offensive line or the defensive line, but all them little tight ends and them little running backs, that's not my game. You know, give me the man. Give me the one that's been eating hamburgers and biscuits. Okay, not the one eating beignets over there. Give me that man. I want to see him. Okay, yeah. I just like to see their formation and how quick they can move. They, you know, 6'4" and 250 pounds. How do you move that fast? But the point I'm making is that when I watch football, I ain't sitting there. I'm watching positions. I ain't looking at nobody's color. I ain't looking at. I mean, I'm not even. When you play for the Saints, I don't care if you went to Ohio University or LSU, you just better be a good running back, a good quarterback. I mean, Drew Brees come out of Indiana, okay? Baby, that's my boy. I wear number 9. And I often tell people, it's not for Drew Brees, I'm the third of 9 children, of course. But the point of, we have to learn how to respect each other. And we're different.
Yes.
I should write that book about my giving up white people for letting then going on the white people tour. I learned that white people can cook. I learned that white people were playing music. I said, all this history and all this culture, and y'all ain't told nobody about y'all. Y'all so busy over here. And you didn't even tell me about your history and your culture. You didn't tell me about and the cathedrals in Europe. Oh my God, what cathedral have I not been to? Notre Dame. Of course. I mean, the art.
The Ethiopian influence in Italy. You see it, the Ethiopian influence.
You see it. I mean, and here we're supposed to be racist when we come to America. Come on. All right. And don't even go to Greece. You know the Africans, I mean, come on. They're all, you knew the Africans made landfall there too. The Africans were everywhere. In fact, when they do your DNA test, everybody's genetic roots go all the way back there. Okay?
Mhm.
And just because you left somewhere near Ethiopia and you went to Norway or the Scandinavian countries or went, west somewhere, don't mean that you didn't start there. That's human history. And we all started from someplace. And we need to figure out how we can come back together, because that's very important.
Yes. This actually will tie next into another audience's question. In the wake of recent violence and protests, what are your views about the effects upon American democracy?
Oh, I really have to think hard and long about 2020. I mean, 2020 has so many complex stories and realities. But here you have on May 25th, I believe, the murder, death of George Floyd, 8 minutes, 46 seconds. You see it. I'm on Fox News, I believe, the Tuesday, either the Monday or the Tuesday, I forget which day, but I'm on Fox News right afterwards. And here I'm on television, and I can count the number of outbursts. I call them outbursts when I've told somebody to go to Haynes Point, hell. So I'm sitting here on TV, and I'm saying he's calling for his mom. His mom is dead. Why didn't the office, he kept saying, sir. George Floyd's murder, in many ways, made all of us get up the next day and say, what can we do to change this narrative? And then, as you well know, there were other incidents of police violence and aggression. And then the reaction is, we're not going to take this. They work for us. And so the reaction is, of course, to stand up and to say, no. The majority of the protests last year, as a result of the violence by police officers, to many, as you know, if you look at Rochester, you look at all of the different places, even the shooting of that young man and Jacob Blake, 7 times.
Yes.
Boom, 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 boom. I mean, and you say to yourself, America, come to grips with this. We don't want to live in a violent community. We don't want black on black crime. We don't want white on black crime. We don't want black on white crime. We don't want no crime. We got to condemn all forms of violence. And sadly, some people took the protests as an opportunity to do more than protest the violence that was happening, but they perpetuated violence with looting. I mean, we should have been able to condemn the looting as well as condemn the shooting that made us get out and protest in the first place. Instead, we're called upon to criticize each other or demonize each other, and to call, the people protesting, violent, when majority of them, 93%, according to the Washington Post, that went all over the world, all over the country, because, I mean, there were protests everywhere. And they say the majority are peaceful. Here in my block, this block right here, I live in a part of Washington, D.C. where Abraham Lincoln had a summer home where he would go up and write. And not far from here. And I often go there because I like the setting. But in my neighborhood now, which has changed, there are more white families and white neighbors with Black Lives Matter signs than black families. In fact, I think I was one of the last 2 people to get my Black Lives Matter sign. My white neighbors, and by the way, they're some of the best neighbors in the world. The other day, I saw some trash out. I said, oh, you're moving in, huh? I said, they pick up on Thursdays, not on Mondays. So you might want to go take your trash back in the yard. He said, I don't have any garbage can. I said, oh, well, I guess when you move, you didn't know you had to call and order one, huh? Because, you like to get your money. And so, you know what I did? I said, you know what? Because I don't like trash in the neighborhood. I really don't like no kind of trash. I went into my alley with my car. I put on my rubber gloves, got on my face mask. I took one of the garbage cans, because I noticed in the back, one of my neighbors had 5 cans. And I've already complained. I said, why do you need 5 cans? That's too much. I said, you never fill up more than one. So I
Right.
took one of the cans, just like this, put it in my car, kept the hood, the back gate open, ran around the neighborhood to the man. I said, here, you have a garbage can now. And I said, tell him Donna Brazile did it. Okay?
Mhm.
Love thy neighbor.
Yes.
They have the Black Lives Matter sign. That's why I love my neighbors. The Bible says love thy neighbor. I mean, that's one of the offenses that you can go to hell. I ain't going to hell.
Right.
I'm not going. It's too crowded at the bottom. Ain't going. I don't. Social distancing, even in heaven. Okay. I believe we are one people, and it's time we start acting like one people.
So I don't know if I'm out of time or I can't remember what time she said we need to conclude, but I'm gonna try to get in one more question. I guess she'll tap in here or something to let us know.
Dr. Randolph. Yeah, we'll take one more question and then we'll wrap.
Okay.
Everybody want to rap when I'm ready. I'm ready. You know what I'm cooking tonight? Because it's Lent, I've been fasting all day. I've been trying to drink this little nasty, but it has vitamin B and vitamin C. That's why I put it in this cup. Because you know, if it was straight out wine, it would be a clear glass. But this is my vitamin juice and my vitamin water. So tonight I'm having stuffed flounder with crab meat because they say you can't eat meat. But I also read that after 59, you don't have to follow the rules. But I just want to keep following the rules, okay? Because when I get ready to break that rule, trust me, I'm gonna have me some. Ooh, this gonna be some. It's fresh flounder, and I didn't have to go to Whole Foods to get it. A whole paper.
Right, because we can get really good fresh food here. But
Yeah.
I'm gonna go back to one of my own questions, or actually.
All right.
I've talked about Mariah Stewart. I've talked about Anna Julia Cooper. I didn't talk about Shirley Chisholm or Miss Tyson. I did talk about Miss Tyson.
Yes.
But again, I believe continuation of all of those other women that have come before us and that have shown us that we matter, we have value, and that we can change some things. So if someone asks you, what is your legacy at this point? Because you're not nowhere near done. So what would you say?
It's amazing how every 4 years I have to reinvent myself. I'm sorry, but every 4 years. I've come to know that I'm a teacher. It's the longest continuous job I've held. I just have to laugh because I have 10 presidential campaigns, 56 congressional, that's House and Senate, and 19 state and local campaigns. I've worked in 49 states. One more state, I'm gonna become Miss USA without the bikini, okay? Montana, I'm coming, but I'll come in spring, okay? Part of who I am and what I believe I was called to do was to help a world that was already transforming to hurry history. So my role is to hurry history. So my legacy is that Donna tried to hurry history. Every time they gave me an assignment when I was a kid, I'm like, okay, I'm done, next. Okay, I'm done. That's why when Mrs. King said, work on the King holiday, and I said, okay. And then that was 1983, I'm done. Jesse Jackson campaign, registered million voters, done. Now, what do you do next? Well, I wrote my first book, Cooking with Grease. Well, you know what you do next? Then you start putting Black people, you start putting women, you start putting gays and Hispanics and Asians, don't matter who they are. I tried to put the first Jewish man as vice president. I'm gonna keep cracking open the door until everybody can serve. You disabled, fine with me. You want to run for office, let me help you. That's my legacy. My legacy is to keep the doors wide open, to make our democracy alive for everybody so that any child can grow up in this world and truly become what he or she desires to be. And if this little girl, the third of 9 to 2 working class parents, a maid and a janitor can do it, so can you. What's stopping you? There's no one blocking you. There's no box anymore. The box is gone. The barriers are gone. There's only opportunity for parents who didn't make enough money sometimes to pay their bills on time, and they had to put our clothes in the little wear, our toys. And you know what you do when you grow up? You pay it forward. You give back. The Bible says, to whom much is given, much is required. You believe that the goodness in this country is still ripe for opening. And you provide hope to others. You become that lifeline so that when you're no longer able to wear a size 12 or 14, when you can't fit them jeans anymore, when you have too many cans of corn in your pantry, you give it away, you pass it on, you share what you have. You never stop believing in the goodness of human being, because that one child that you are going to give something to might be the child that turns out to change it all for all of us. And yet that is our calling. And that's who I believe I am. I'm a teacher.
Yeah.
I want to say that Donna was a good teacher. It would matter a lot to me.
Well, I have to tell you just a personal second that you've been an inspiration for me, because you speak straight, as I call it. And I've never met a lot of Black women who speak straight. Me, I've loved you from afar, and I just want to thank you for sharing this time with me and providing us with all the insights. And be safe, be well, and I'm going to be looking for that red velvet cake and that gumbo.
Seven layer. And let me just tell you this. I want everybody to understand that when you're making gumbo, the most important step is the root. That's the coming together. That is what holds the gumbo before you put the filet in the okra. What's make the gumbo and not soup. It's the root. ROUX. Each of you can be part of that root that holds this country together, that makes this country the more perfect union. So join me. We can do this. Let's be the root. ROUX.
Sounds good to me. I'm not good at that, but I'm working on it.
All right. I'll send you a recipe.
Yes, thank you. Dr. Winsome, back to you.
Thank you. Wow, wow, wow. Donna, thank you so much. This was just absolutely amazing. Before we wrap, and Donna, if you hold a moment, let me. Huh?
Your video is off.
Thank you, Donna, so much. This was amazing, inspirational, and as you say that you're a good teacher, and I am sure those of us who are on learned a lot from you today. Before we wrap, I quickly want to tell you some of what's been in the chat. People are really excited, moved by your message. There are two that I want to highlight. Erica, who's a student that I knew when she was here. She's stationed in Germany, and she said it's midnight there, but she's on and she's listening and she's been commenting the whole time. Other people were asking about where we are with the Senate right now and how we can build bipartisanship, as well as what's their role in how, as individuals. One social worker was asking what she can do, but I want to read you from Beatrice, and she's affectionately known as as Auntie B, and she's from Botswana, and she says, thanks for your wisdom and honesty. I have admired you for a long time and know you are beautiful on the inside and outside. I am retiring from Ohio University and I am from Botswana. It would be wonderful to have you come and visit Botswana in the near future and meet and empower other formidable women, because she's done an amazing job in Botswana with empowering women there, and that they could also learn from you as well.
You know, when you empower women and girls, you empower a community to stand for itself. When you give women and girls an opportunity to serve and to lead, you build all of the tools and resources of that community. So I would love to. I went to Ghana when I was in my 30s, and I trained many of the parliamentarians in Ghana, and I stay in touch. I've also visited 8 other nations on the continent of Africa. Most people don't know there are over 50 countries on the continent of Africa. And so while I've only visited about 10 or 11, I have a long way to go before I know the entire continent. So I've never been to Botswana, so I look forward to your invitation. And to my young friend, Erica in Germany, Dankeschön. I got some Bitburger Pilsner right now in my refrigerator. My best walking boots are from Germany. Some of my best clothes, and do not talk about how they cook their pork tenderloins. So yes, Dankeschön.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, before we have several other activities happening for the month, please check out the Alden Library Anti-Racism and Black Lives Matter resources, as well as there's a Black Summit that's happening on February 18th. You can RSVP to Reggie at communityfoodinitiatives.org, and that is between 6 and 9 p.m. We're showing the movie Rosewood on Friday in Baker Center, and it starts at 6 p.m. The African American Studies Department is presenting their first annual Ted Rose Lecture Series this spring, and the first one is this Thursday, tomorrow, February 18th at 6 p.m. And for those of you who are feeling the cold and the ice, we have a steel drum session happening tonight. Yes, we are bringing the islands here, and so join us live on twitch.tv/Ohio Involvement for Brent Samuel on the steel drums. So, but Donna, thanks again. We walk away with Love Thy Neighbor, Paid Forward, Hurry History, Be a Good Teacher, but most importantly in all of this is be a part of the root that holds our society, our cities, our countries, our schools, and indeed the world together, because we are stronger together than when we are apart. What a way to end, to welcome you as our featured Black History Month speaker, and ending with be the root that holds it all together. What a way to end your presentation today.
Thank you.
Thank you
so
all again. Thank you, Dr.
Such a
Nellis, for
blessing.
your presentation. Thanks to Dr. Secuban for your introductory words. And of course, to Dwayne, Dr. Bruce, for holding down the technology, and also Dr. Randolph for,
Thank
of
you
course,
all.
executing and moderating so flawlessly. Thanks again to everyone. We look forward to seeing you at all the activities. The ones I listed are only a few. There's still many others. Please check out our website for all the Black History Month events. Thanks again for coming out, and have a wonderful evening. Don't forget to be that root.